episode number 72. This episode is brought to you by our Career Kickstart program, where we help working mums who are feeling stuck, overwhelmed and frustrated to take the next best step in their career. Figuring out your next career move can be tough, and when you add motherhood into the mix, well, things can get really complicated. So through our program, we help you to move away from being frustrated and overwhelmed to getting to a place where you are loving your work and life. If this sounds good to you, then head over to our website at www.lightboxcoaching.com and find out more information. Hi, you're listening to the Careers Beyond Motherhood podcast with your host, Janine Esbrand. I'm here to help working mums like you to thrive in your careers and in motherhood. I share tips, strategies and inspirational conversations with awesome women to help reduce the struggle in your juggle.
Time for Say Mummy.
Hello and welcome to the show. It is wonderful to be back with you again. You could be anywhere. You could be listening to anything. And the fact that you are tuning in right now to the Careers Beyond Motherhood podcast makes me very, very happy. So thanks for being here. It's been a few weeks since I've been here, and it's because life got busy. It got really busy, and I'm going to, as we move into 2020, try and be a lot more consistent with getting episodes out to you. But life can be really crazy sometimes. So you may have seen that I was running a career change bootcamp and just opened up enrollment on a brand new program. Enrollment's closed now, but I had a group of ladies sign up and we are now going through this 90-day program, which I'm super excited about because it's helping them to get crystal clear clarity on what it is they want to do with their career and then implement the steps and the strategy that they need to find work that they love. So this program is my new baby. I'm absolutely loving it and it's awesome, but preparing all of that and bringing everything together does take a lot of time and energy, and so I have neglected the podcast, for which I apologize, but I'm back and today I want to talk to you about something that's really awesome. So on my list of things that I would like to do next year is write a book. I've been saying for a while that I want to write a book, and last year I met a lady who I know is going to help me towards that goal. So she is a fellow masterminder. So I was in a mastermind with her. She's absolutely incredible, and she helps people to write books. But not just any books. She helps them to write books that allows them to build their businesses or grow their personal brand. And she's just so awesome. I absolutely love Deborah. So we are going to be diving into a conversation with her where she's sharing all things how you approach writing a book in an effective and efficient way. And she talks a bit about how she juggles her work with her role as a mum to an awesome young lady. She's just a wonderful person and I can't wait for you to hear from her. So without further ado, let's jump into my interview with Deborah Ager. Hi, Deborah. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm super excited to interview you. So can you introduce yourself and tell the audience a bit about you?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Janine. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Deborah Ager. My company is called Radiant Media Labs, and I guide coaches and consultants to start and finish business building books.
Awesome. Okay, so there's so much I want to dive into around books and business building books. But before I do that, can you talk to us a bit about what your career looked like before motherhood and then what it looks like now? I know you have done such amazing things in your career, so I want my audience to hear all about it.
Sure. So I earned an MFA in creative writing from the University of Florida. And then from that, I became a copywriter and I was working as a copywriter for several years. That eventually led me to some different jobs in marketing and doing direct mail fundraising for nonprofits here in the US. And I'm trying to think. So after I had my daughter, I stayed in a similar line of work, but I made a few adjustments because I wanted to have some more time at home. By then I was slightly more advanced in my career, so I could navigate and negotiate for some flexible work arrangements so that I could not spend so much time on the road commuting back and forth between office and home. So that's kind of one way that things changed a little bit for me after having my daughter.
And talk to me a bit about that negotiation piece, because one of the things that a lot of the clients that I work with struggle with is approaching their employer about working differently, and people tend to be reluctant to negotiate. So I'd love to hear how you approached it and what worked well in that situation.
Yeah, I think it's about finding what in your plan for your new schedule will resonate well with your employer. So what that is would differ for any employer. But I think looking at it from the employer's perspective can be helpful, because they might be scared they're going to lose you and then lose all of that knowledge that you have that's beneficial to the organization. They also, depending upon the manager, and maybe this is less so than it was, say, 10 years ago, but I think also managers worry about how they're going to manage other people if they're not in the office. And in certain industries, that is still the case. Certain other industries are a little bit more up to date on the way that those kinds of arrangements can work. There's also thinking through with the person you're asking about the savings to the organization, because by working from home more, that's energy and time and space you're not taking up in an office. So I worked for one organization that was actually trying to encourage more people to work from home because they didn't want to have to pay for so much real estate. And that's a real cost that a lot of companies have to pay for, that if they allow more people to work from home and have these more flexible work arrangements, it actually ends up saving them a lot of office space and not having to pay for that.
I love that. That is so good, because often we can focus a lot on our situation and what it is that we want and why. But when you switch the focus to the organization, then it makes it much easier for them to say yes, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
So now tell us about how you work with people now, because I'm fascinated by your approach. I've heard of lots of people who help people to write books, but you have a kind of unique approach, I think. So I'd love to have you share with the audience why writing a book's a good idea and how you approach it differently.
Yeah. So I always say it's not for everyone. Not everyone needs to write a book. However, if it is something that really interests you, then I would consider it, because it's a really wonderful way to get your credibility, to establish and build upon your credibility and authority, and also to educate and inspire people around what you do, as well as encourage them to take action. So a lot of people may use it as a way to introduce people to their system or process. And then by the time they speak with you on the phone or they sign up for your course, the person already knows a lot about what you do because they've already read your book. So some of the ways that I work with people are that sometimes I do straight on ghostwriting, where I'm working with them one-on-one. I also have a group program where I'm working with a variety of people who are writing their own books and want coaching through it. Actually, I call it a group program, but it's actually, I'm working with people one-on-one, but there are some group elements to it where people can gather. So it's mostly one-on-one. And each person is working on their own book, and then I'm guiding them through every step of the process. And so some of those steps of the process include getting really clear on who are you really writing to? What is the content that needs to be included for your reader to benefit from it? If you look at the book as a way to change, as an invitation to someone to change in some way, then having the right content in there for that particular reader is really important. And then we work through together how to order the book. What is the right order for the material to be in? What kinds of content, like where in the book does the content need to appear? Is there supplementary content that we should consider having? Is there some storytelling that we need to figure out? What kinds of stories? How should that story be constructed? There's so many questions just under stories itself. And then we talk through the best path to publication for them, as well as how to polish the prose, so it ends up being a book that they can be proud of.
That's brilliant. And in terms of the people that you tend to work with, do you find that it's generally people that have their own businesses or are freelancing or consulting? Or do you have people that are in industry and in the corporate space that also want to write a book to stand out in their industry and to be a go-to person to attract clients, but in a corporate setting?
Oh, that's a great question. So I work a lot with executive coaches who are working inside organizations to make them healthier. And the way they do their work varies. And then I also work with a lot of people who are speaking on a variety of topics. So it could be anything from messaging strategy, marketing, sales, to something as specific as content marketing or inbound marketing. So I work with a lot of people who want to speak on various kinds of topics. and they want that book to help them book speaking engagements on larger stages or at larger conferences. And that book is their entree into that world.
That's brilliant. And I think that now it is, I'm just so excited because I'm like, her writing a book has been on my bucket list for some time. And the more and more I listen to you, the more I feel like it's possible. It's not that hard. We can totally do it.
Yeah.
And in terms of the industry and writing books, it was a lot harder before in terms of having to get a publisher, having to get a deal. But now people can just self-publish, right? So have you seen that has led to more people saying, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do it because there's not that additional hurdle?
I think so, because in 2017, there was about $1 million worth of books self-published. I think I have that number right, but the industry is only growing, the self-publishing industry. And I think it's for a couple of reasons. One, I think that people really like how fast it is. If you go with a traditional publisher, it usually takes at least 1 year, if not 2, to see your book in print. And a lot of the people I work with don't want to wait that long. So, I mean, it's up to them. I'll help them with whatever path they choose. A lot of people do choose self-publishing because it's faster. They also like it because they have more control over not only the content, but also the design. And then one of the reasons that some people choose a traditional publisher is for the marketing. But sometimes what people have found is that the traditional publisher isn't able to provide the level of marketing support that they need, and they're still doing a lot of marketing on their own. So then they're thinking, well, why didn't I just self-publish if I have to do the marketing on my own? So these are some of the different things that I think are important to take into account when you decide which path is for you. So I'd say the majority of people that I'm working with do choose the self-publishing path. And sometimes what they're doing is they're self-publishing now, and then they think, okay, maybe in a few years, I'll put together that business book and submit it to one of the business publishers and do that later on. So then, they might come back to me at that point and to get some help with that next step.
Okay. And what would you say is the thing that you enjoy most about working with clients on writing books?
I love their ideas. It's so much fun. And a lot of people wonder, aren't there so many books on this topic? How will my book stand out? And I love working with them in the process that I've created in order to figure out how they're going to stand out. So seeing their eyes light up and seeing those aha moments happen is really exciting. So just the other day I was working with someone and they want to incorporate a story. And at the beginning of the conversation, it seemed like the book was going to go in one direction, but then we found out that this is not what the author was excited about. The author was actually excited about taking this different storytelling direction with the book and asked, which one should I do? And I said, I think you should go in the way that excites you the most. So through this conversation, we remapped the book and outlined it. And now the author knows which way to go. So it's like seeing those kinds of things happen is just endlessly exciting for me.
I love it. That's like when I work with my clients and I see them have one of those moments when they're looking up and then they're like, oh, you're like, yes.
Yeah. It's so much fun.
How have you found that your work has impacted your daughter? Like, does she like books, and how involved does she get in the work that you're doing? Because I know she's a little older than my little people.
Yes. So she really likes it. I joke sometimes that, I've authored books. My husband's a novelist. My daughter has a novel in Google Docs. I don't know if it's finished yet. So it's just, books are the family business. And then I sometimes say paper runs in my veins instead of blood. Because we do love books here. And so I think that my husband's love of reading and words, as well as my own love of reading and words, has definitely influenced her. And she loves to sit down with a book and read, and she loves to write as well. So that's lovely.
And do you guys like to play Scrabble?
We do. Yeah. We don't do it too often, but it is fun to play it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love board games and stuff, but my husband's not that much of a fan. So I've always been like, can you play with me? Let's play. And now my children are growing up. I'm like, come and play with mummy. So I want to be able to do that stuff.
Have you ever checked out, there's I want to call it 3D Scrabble, but it's the kind of Scrabble where you can build on the letters that are already there. And there's these tiles. And so you can build 2 and 3 high. So if you see a word and you want to put letters on top of it, you can do that. It's really cool.
That sounds absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So in terms of your method, I know that you call it the book activation method. Is that right?
Yes.
So can you talk to us a bit about that process and kind of how you walk people through that feeling of, I want to write a book, don't know how to do it. to, oh, I have an outline and I can get going?
Oh, sure. So we always start with figuring out who their people are and who it is that's going to read the book. So we work through that together, and I have some materials that I provide for them. So they work through that before we talk, and then we talk and map out the rest of it together. And they end up through the process of creating the outline. A lot of it happens through conversation. So I'm asking them certain questions. Some of those questions, it's not really like a checklist of questions, but some of them are coming up naturally in conversation throughout the process of getting them to talk more about what it is that they're doing and what it is that they want for themselves and for their book and for their business. And then through that process, I help them map out the ordering of the book itself. And then they end up walking away with an outline. So then they feel like, oh my gosh, I have this figured out. Now, sometimes one of the things that's really interesting is sometimes the outline can change a little bit. So as we move more deeply into the project and we interact more deeply with the material, then sometimes we realize, oh, maybe chapter 2 should actually be chapter 1. And maybe what we thought was chapter 4 should really be compressed with chapter 5. So some of these really interesting and exciting ideas begin to happen even between the two meetings I have with people when I'm working with them on the outline. And then it's like this really rich, creative time period where we're figuring out what's going to go in the book, as well as figuring out what the order is, all so that they can help that person make that change or learn something that helps them make a change.
Brilliant. It sounds so step by step, and I think that's what's attractive, because then I'm like, yeah, there's a plan. My lawyer brain always comes out, what's the plan? How are we getting there? So that's brilliant. So in terms of how you work, and you're running your own business and you're working with multiple different clients. So do you have any challenges around kind of deadlines? So if there's multiple people writing a book at once and you're working with them, how do you manage that? And how do you manage that alongside your role as a mom and everything that comes with that?
Oh, that's a great question. So right now I have a few coaching clients, and with the majority of some of them want this and some of them don't. And the nice thing is that I tailor our conversations to what they need. So they get what they need and they don't get what they don't need. So, but the majority of them like to have me walk through the project plan with them. So we get really clear on what they want to accomplish in that time period. It might be a full manuscript, it might be a draft. And then we walk through what that timeline looks like for them. And then in terms of managing it with having a child, I do a lot of the work while she's at school. So I try to do a lot of my meetings while she's at school. And then she's older now. So even if I take a meeting with someone later in the day, she's usually doing homework or something like that. So in that way, it ends up working out really well. And when I'm working on projects where I'm actually doing the writing myself and it's a ghostwriting project, then sometimes I sequester myself away, because I might be writing for 4 or 5 hours for somebody in a day, or sometimes even longer. So then for that, like I just find it's easier just to kind of be out of the daily home life. And then I try to compress those kinds of tasks together so that I can be efficient with my time.
Yeah. Such good tips. Because it's good to look at the type of work that you're doing and how you can adjust the way that you're working to suit the type of work. Yeah. And I know that from what you said at the beginning, you've had lots of different roles that you've done that's got you to this point where you can work in a way that you want to work. What advice would you give to anybody who's listening, who's thinking they want to branch out on their own? They have gained a whole load of industry experience, but they're kind of on the fence about doing that.
Yeah, it's a really difficult decision, and I struggled with it a lot. And I finally reached a point in my daily job. Not only did I not feel fulfilled, but it was becoming extremely stressful. And for a lot of people, it was. So I just thought, I really need to do something different. So I had some different businesses before, and then I launched my company actually first as a marketing business. So I was working as a marketing consultant for different companies and running different kinds of marketing campaigns for them. And then also working with their junior staff and getting their junior staff up to speed on things. So then I ended up morphing over to books. And I'm trying to think, when I think back to that time period, I had so many questions about making the leap. And I know for a lot of people, they're worried about, what am I going to do about finances? And will I ever get a client? And so one thing that I have seen people do is to have a side, have a side business for a while. For me, that wasn't really possible because my hours at my job were so incredibly long that it was hard to do anything else besides that. So I just sort of had to save up and then make a leap and then just decide, okay, I guess I'll figure this out as I go along. And so that's what I ended up doing. I don't recommend other people do that because it's kind of crazy, but it did end up working out. And it helped because I had a network. I developed a network over a long period of time. So it helped to know people as well.
Yeah, that is brilliant because it is so important to have your network and to remember that your network can help you to get to where you want to go. I always share that with people, but it's also good to recognize that you might not know what the destination is when you take the leap, or even if you transition into a new role where people are concerned about moving from their current role to a new role. You don't know how it's going to work out, but you just take one step and then that step leads to the next step and the next step, and then you never know where you end up. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And that ties into something else I read the other day, which was about, that old saying that we've all heard so many times, it's not just about the end point, it's about the journey. But I've heard that so many times it no longer had much meaning to me, but I saw that same idea in different words. And it was really about enjoying where you are now. And so seeing it said in a different way jogged me out of just seeing the old cliche. And I thought, yes, it's really not about this getting to some kind of destination in the future all the time, but it's really about enjoying the clients I have now who are fabulous and enjoying what I've created right now because it's really cool and fun. And is everything perfect? No, it never will be probably because like perfection is some kind of imaginary something in my brain that we'll never reach, like potential. It's something you'll always reach, right? You can never reach a potential. It's because it's always a potential. So I remember in coaching school that was pointed out to me and I've always thought about that. So it's more like focus on where you are now and enjoying it. So it's the same with kids. You have children, you have your work and you're trying to balance the two if you're a mom and you're trying to balance those two areas of your life. And sometimes slowing down and just enjoying what's right there in that day is so important.
Yeah, I love that. That is such a good reminder as well, because sometimes it's crazy and you're just like, but then I think I did that the other day. I was getting so upset and like frustrated that people in my house weren't listening to me, i.e. the little people. And then I just decided to just make a game out of whatever we were doing, and it just lightened the mood and we were all laughing and it was just completely different. So yeah, that is such a good tip. So if people want to find out more about you, the work that you're doing, your awesome methods and your kind of approach, where would they find you?
They can come to my website, which is at radiantmedialabs.com. And they can also find me on LinkedIn. My name is Deborah Ager, so they can also look for me there.
Awesome. I forgot to ask you one question that I always ask my guests. Are there any inspirational quotes or sayings that you'd like to share?
I would love to share this one, which is Goethe. It's whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. And I keep this on my refrigerator, and it's actually my mentor coach who gave it to me many years ago. And I've always kept it on my refrigerator just to remind myself of that. I just love this saying.
Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
So we will put the links to your website, and I'll also link to your LinkedIn profile because I love what you're doing on LinkedIn and all the awesome value that you share over there. And so people can go and check you out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thanks for sharing with us. Isn't she just lovely? It was great hearing from Debs, her take on how to approach negotiation, how to manage your work with your children. And I really liked how she laid out the book activation method and made a process that to many seems overwhelming and daunting sound so simple. So I am fully pumped now to dive into writing a book, and I have no doubt that I'll be reaching out to Deborah once I'm ready to get started. Now, if you've been thinking about getting your words out there into the world in the form of a book, then make sure that you connect with Debs over on LinkedIn. She's always sharing such amazing stories and valuable content on LinkedIn. She also has a free guide which gives you the 3 secrets that you need to know to enable you to write a book that people will actually read. So I'll be downloading that. If you want to download it too, head over to the show notes at lightboxcoaching.com episode 72, and then you can grab that link and connect with Deborah Deborah across social media. And I want to just encourage you, if you haven't done so already, to leave a rating and review for this podcast. The more people that review this show, it means that it goes out to more people. More people will be able to find it and take part in the conversations that we have over here. So I'd really appreciate it if you head over to iTunes or you use the podcast app that you are using to listen to this and just leave a review. That will be awesome. So that's all from me right now. I will be back with you very, very soon, and I'll speak to you then. Bye. This podcast features music from Ben Sound.